Hello viewers, a pleasant afternoon to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Ron Grant. You're watching 284 Media out of Rotown, Tortola in the beautiful British Virgin Islands. Of course, my home, my paradise. As promised to you earlier, we are being joined by His Excellency Governor John Rankin and of course Mr. Ian Cumming, UK Health Ambassador to the Overseas Territories. Viewers, we're touching on a number of issues today, of course, beginning first of all with Governor John Rankin. All this and so much more after a word from our sponsors. You're watching 284 Media.
Is about these people.
It's always a pleasure coming to you live and direct from the...
What's poppin'? What's really good?
Davis has won it for the Lakers!
Viewers, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Again, I'm Ron Grant and you're watching 284 Media out of Rotown, Tortola. His Excellency Governor John Rankin, welcome back to 284 Media. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here with you again.
Governor, as the territory of the Virgin Islands continues to traverse through these very difficult times, of course, that is the global pandemic, that is COVID-19, our officials here, along with yourself, continue to push really for residents to do their best in these very difficult times. Before we get into that, I want to ask you, what is your take on our level of readiness as we continue to traverse through COVID-19? What are your thoughts on how we've been handling this?
Well, I'm glad that so far BVI has managed to avoid a major outbreak of COVID on the island, and that's thanks to the good work of the health authorities and everybody else involved. I'm glad that the United Kingdom government was able last year to provide personal protection equipment and testing supplies, and of course, vitally, vaccines have been supplied from the UK. Professor Ian Cummings, who's going to come later onto your show, will tell you more about the importance of taking vaccines. But I know that they help to keep both the people who are vaccinated safe and also those who they intermingle with safe, because it reduces the level of transmission. So I join in urging everybody on the island to get vaccinated. Don't procrastinate, get vaccinated.
Wonderful. Good governance, Governor, is of course of paramount importance as it pertains to your portfolio. Of course, we've been hearing a lot about good governance presently. When you consider good governance, I'd like you to explain that to the general public and its role in our territory.
Good governance is about good decision making. It's about transparency, accountability, making sure that decisions are based on the best available evidence, and making sure that public funds are spent in a responsible and accountable fashion. And it's important not just as a concept, it's important because with good governance comes effective decision making which can deliver for people. With good governance comes stability and the basis for prosperity and success in a society. And without good governance, the opposite can apply. So my job as governor, and particularly for the institutions which I have responsibility for supporting, is to always support that good governance in every decision that is made. And I want to promote good governance across all aspects of government and decision making here in BVI.
What measures, Governor, would you say are presently in place as it pertains to really pushing for good governance? Do we have any legislation? What measures are set in stone as is?
Well, there are a number of existing measures under BVI's constitution to help to ensure a good governance. The work of the Auditor General, which is crucial in ensuring proper control and transparency in public funds being spent. The work of the Complaints Commissioner in dealing with complaints of maladministration. But there are more mechanisms which we can develop going forward, and I welcome in principle the whistleblower legislation, integrity in public life legislation, which is now being proposed and which is being considered in public consultation and in the House of Assembly. If we can get that legislation right with new mechanisms working in a complementary fashion with existing mechanisms which ensure accountability, that would help good governance. These institutions need to be independent. So the courts, the Auditor General, the Complaints Commissioner all need to operate in an independent fashion to ensure accountability of governance. And if we can have those checks and balances within the system, that will help BVI as a whole.
On the issue, Governor, of national security, that has been a conversation for quite some time within the last few months of the territory, as we've seen a number of incidents that have totally shifted. You sit as one of the members of the National Security Council here in the British Virgin Islands. What would you say to residents as it pertains to some of the meetings that you've been having? Of course, they're closed doors, but where are we when it comes to the national security of the residents of this territory?
I understand and recognise people's concerns in this area. I have responsibility for security under the Constitution, and I chair the National Security Council, on which the Premier, the Deputy Premier, the Attorney General and the Police Commissioner all sit. My priority is, first of all, to tackle crime on the island. Organised crime in particular, and the transshipment of illicit drugs, which can be so corroding for the society in which we live. And the job of the National Security Council is to advise and help support the Police Commissioner in that area. And of course, I'm particularly aware of the murders which have occurred in recent months, the majority of which may well have been related to that organised crime of which I've spoken. So I welcome the steps that the Police Commissioner has taken with UK support in upping the way we're trying to tackle that organised crime. I welcome very much the large drugs hauls, record number of drugs hauls that have been made, and I recognise, perhaps most recently, the very early charges, arrests and charges which were brought following the dreadful murder of Mrs. Pickering. Of course, I'm also concerned, most particularly recently, about the events at the prison 2 weeks ago, which have rightly caused concern to people across BVI.
And speaking of that incident, Governor, a lot of persons not only have been speaking about the unfortunate death of one of the inmates, but when we look at the tone of many of the inmates at Her Majesty's prison, as a territory, we've received photos of the mostly young men circulating with gold chains, with alcohol, what seems to be illicit drugs. I want to talk to you about the tone from your seat and what you seek to do as it pertains to not only the security of the inmates, but the overall running of the facility and the image that is being portrayed, that it is somewhat a bit of a hotel.
I saw those pictures on social media like everybody else, and they were deeply worrying in terms of what appears to be alcohol, illicit drugs, gang chains being worn at what was some form of party and social event at the prison, and which tragically, the events at the end of that weekend resulted in a number of prisoners being stabbed and one prisoner losing his life. And the behaviour which we have seen resulting in those stabbings and loss of life are completely unacceptable. I called a meeting of the National Security Council on the Monday following the events of the Sunday evening, and we took a number of early decisions. First of all, to have a lockdown at the prison, increase the number of prison officers supervising the prisoners. Secondly, the launch of an internal investigation into the events to go along with current police investigation into those events. And as you also know, 2 officers who were in charge around the time of the particular events that occurred had been placed on administrative leave. So we need that investigation to continue. The police have already made a number of arrests in relation to the crimes which appear to have occurred. But we also, more widely, need to have, I believe, an external review of security at the prison and arrangements at the prison to make sure not just for these particular set of dreadful incidents, but in the longer term, we can ensure the better security and safety at the prison. Safety for prisoners, safety for prison officers, and to give the public confidence that the prison is being properly run. So that's a very high priority for me, given the dreadful events of 2 weeks ago.
You spoke of the actions to put 2 of the senior officers who were around at that time or in charge on leave. Do you know of any measures to recruit more prison officers, and what is the training like for them? Have they been receiving adequate training, and are the recruiting of prison officers, is that of concern?
Well, we certainly need a sufficient number of prison officers to deal with the number of prisoners in the prison. There are about 106 prisoners in the prison as we speak. But yes, I believe we do need improved training. for prison officers. We need improved security. We need improved work on rehabilitation. And I'm pleased to say that a UK trainer will be coming out to the island shortly to assist the prison superintendent and the staff in that particular area.
Thank you, sir. We are we're pretty much in the hurricane season 2021. This has been, by all accounts, the officials have stated that this seems to be a very active season. Of course, the territory is no stranger to drastic hurricanes, the latest being in 2017. I want to speak about the territory's readiness and preparation as it pertains to where we are, as it pertains to being prepared and ready for this hurricane season.
We all need to be ready for hurricane season. I, for myself, saw this island after Hurricane Irma hit, and I was here for Hurricane Maria, so I'm aware of the dreadful damage which a major hurricane can cause to this territory. So the job now, as we continue that post-Irma recovery, is to make sure we're all as ready as we can be. And when I say all, I mean government, but also private businesses and individual families, to ensure we have as much resilience as possible. So everybody should be preparing in terms of the supplies you need to get them through the few days after hurricane, preparing to make sure their buildings are as structurally sound as possible. And I will be taking steps shortly, calling a meeting of the National Disaster Management Council to review preparedness across the island, from the emergency services to the shelters here in Tortola and in the sister islands, to make sure as best we can that people are safe from this sort of dreadful natural disaster which can occur. We hope for a quiet hurricane season, but we must prepare for a possibly highly active hurricane season this year. So let's all be prepared.
Yes. As it pertains to COP26, I want to touch on that, of course. What are your thoughts? Tell us about that.
Yeah, the parties to the UN climate change agreement will be meeting at the end of this year, the 26th such meeting, COP26 it's called, actually in my home city of Glasgow. And the aim of the conference will be for countries across the world to further commit and actually take action to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, because without doing so, we risk further climate change, which, as we know in BVI, can be highly damaging, particularly to small island countries and small island territories such as BVI. So the UK needs to play its part, and the UK has committed to net zero emissions by 2050, with marking stones along the way to reach that goal. But BVI too can play its part by helping to particularly move to more renewable energy, by reducing carbon emissions, reducing use of diesel, and increasing solar and wave power energy. And the UK stands ready to continue to support that effort. And we are currently funding installation of solar panels in our schools. And I might mention also that we're aware of the potential effect on the marine environment. Today is World Oceans Day, and of course the oceans are a hugely precious resource because of the abundance of marine life, their importance for tourism in BVI. And this morning I was out in the water with the Minister of Natural Resources, seeing some of the reefs for myself, and I know we've got to do our best to preserve those reefs. And again, the UK government is providing funding to help precisely to do that.
Indeed, I hope you did have an opportunity, like you said, with the Honourable Minister. Our ocean is of paramount importance, not only protecting our borders, but making sure that our residents and citizens are treating the ocean, particularly our corals and our coral reef environment, which is of extreme importance to us. I have to backtrack just a little bit. We recently had the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force launch a community policing project. You were present along with Police Commissioner Mark Collins, and we saw a number of police officers present themselves, and they're going to be specifically targeting different communities. I want to touch on the importance of community members having that relationship and that go-to with our police officers. What would you say to community members as they see the police officers traverse through their different communities in working towards protecting us and making us as safe as possible?
Well, I was very pleased that the Police Commissioner launched this community policing initiative, because policing is most effective where it operates in tandem with local communities. The police getting to know the families, the grandparents, the parents, the youngsters living in a particular area, getting to know the business owners, getting to know how the community operates there. That allows the police to operate in a sensitive fashion, in a well-informed fashion, and hopefully gives the community the confidence to come forward to the police when they have concerns. So I hope that's going to be another arrow in the quiver for the police in helping to build security and confidence in the island. And that goes along with better training for the police. It goes along with increased resources. I've been pleased to support increasing the number of police officers, including from the UK and the Cayman Islands, who have come to help following the recent murders. But it needs the police working with the community and the community working with the police. So let's all get together to help to support that effort.
Governor Rankin, thank you so much for coming in and checking in with us. We appreciate your time. Viewers, we are going to be joined next by Mr. Ian Cumming, who is the UK Healthcare Ambassador for the Overseas Territories. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media@cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back. As promised, we are joined by Mr. Ian Cumming, the UK Healthcare Ambassador to the Overseas Territory. Mr. Cumming, welcome to 284 Media, and of course, welcome to the British Virgin Islands.
Good afternoon, Ron. Thank you very much indeed for the invitation to be here today.
You're most welcome. The AstraZeneca vaccine, of course, and the fight against COVID-19 vaccinations have been a topic of discussion here in the territory of the Virgin Islands. The AstraZeneca vaccine is what is available to us. We're going to ask a few questions as it pertains to the vaccine, its safety and efficiency. But from your perspective, I want you to begin by telling us about the national vaccination program. From your standpoint, where are we?
So there's some brilliant work being done here in the Virgin Islands to ensure that as many people as possible take the vaccine. But you know, there's more we can do. There's definitely a degree of vaccine hesitancy. And I think that's down to the fact that people have a low perceived risk of COVID, the actual disease, and a high perceived risk of vaccine. Unfortunately, neither of those are correct. I've been present in many countries where tragically people have been dying in hospitals and in nursing homes from the effects of this virus. And also, I've been present in many countries to see the vaccination programme roll out, particularly Gibraltar, where over 90% of the adult population have now taken the vaccine. And I've been able to see at first hand the protection that's been offered to the population as a whole and individuals.
Okay, talk to us about the safety of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Of course, we've been hearing a lot of skepticism. Persons have their thoughts, and I think the perhaps skepticism is lending to many residents not wanting to take the vaccine. From your seat, tell us about the safety and efficiency of the vaccine.
So many things that we do in healthcare are about replacing one risk with another. So if I were to develop appendicitis and go to hospital, I wouldn't think twice about having an anaesthetic and having surgery to remove my appendix. Because if I didn't have that surgery, then my appendix would rupture and chances are I would die from widespread infection. Now, in having an anaesthetic, there's a risk. In having surgery, there's a risk. But those risks are lower than the risk of dying from the actual disease itself. It's just the same with vaccination. There is a tiny risk with the vaccine, but there is a much, much greater risk of actually dying if you contract COVID. Some 34 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine have now been given in the United Kingdom. 32 people are believed to have died from blood clots associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine. So that's roughly 1 in 1 million people.
Correct.
222 people have become poorly with blood clots associated with the vaccine. But a risk of 1 in a million, your risk is so much higher of catching COVID and dying from COVID. And by the way, with COVID, it's quite often blood clots that kill you. So this is about how do we reduce the risk to an individual and how do we develop immunity in the population. There are only two ways to get immunity to a disease. One of those is by actually catching the virus, in this case itself. The second way is to be vaccinated. You will not develop immunity simply as time goes by. We don't want there to be an outbreak here in the Virgin Islands, such as they've recently seen in Anguilla or Bermuda, for example, where tragically people have been in intensive care and lost their lives, for people to realise that they need to take this vaccine.
In the territory of the Virgin Islands, we have seen one unfortunate death and many recovered cases, as you know. But again, there are still persons that are apprehensive. We do have the vaccine that is available. The time is running out, however. The clock is ticking. What would you say to persons who are still apprehensive and have the availability of the vaccine here in the territory? Why should they take this opportunity and be vaccinated?
So I have been vaccinated, my wife has been vaccinated, my children are about to be vaccinated. I personally believe that this vaccine is safe. I believe that we wouldn't be offering it around the world if it wasn't safe. As of yesterday, we passed the global milestone of 2 billion doses of vaccine being given worldwide. We have seen no significant major numbers of side effects resulting from that vaccine. This isn't just about keeping you safe. This is about keeping the whole population safe. It may be, if you're young and fit and healthy, you have a very minor form of COVID, even if you have any symptoms at all. But you know what? You could pass it on to your parents. You could pass it on to your grandparents. I was present in Gibraltar when the virus got into nursing and residential homes for older people, and we were watching 50 and 60 people die over a 5 or 6 week period. And these were people who were sitting up in bed talking 1 minute, 2 to 3 hours later they were dead. We do not want that to happen in these beautiful islands. And the best way to protect yourself, your family, your colleagues, and the whole population of the Virgin Islands is to become vaccinated.
Thank you, sir. Now, you are the UK Health Ambassador to the overseas territories. I want to pan across to some of our fellow overseas territories, citizens and countries. What is the tone like as it pertains to the vaccine? How are they handling this particular aspect of getting residents to take the vaccine?
So I think it's fair to say it's very variable. So I've come to the Virgin Islands from Montserrat, where there's a significant amount of vaccine hesitancy. There's been a lot of messaging on social media and elsewhere, much of which is wildly inaccurate about the AstraZeneca vaccine. Equally, I mentioned earlier on that some 92% of the adult population have taken the vaccine there. Recently, Anguilla has tragically seen a very large number of cases, which resulted in 3 people in intensive care, including a young man, and they were very lucky to have survived their stay in the intensive care unit there in Anguilla. As a result of that, as a result of the local population seeing that this virus is real, seeing that this disease is so serious, they've had a rocketing in the uptake of the vaccine. So, as of figures from yesterday, 84% of the eligible population of Anguilla have now taken the first dose of the vaccine. Some 4 or 5 weeks ago, that figure was significantly lower in a very similar place to that in the Virgin Islands. So perhaps I'd go back to what I said earlier, to any of the territories who are watching, if you have the opportunity to take the vaccine, please do it. Let's not wait for an outbreak to convince you this is real and this could kill you and your family.
Sir Cummings, I thank you so much for coming to 284 Media and, of course, enlighten us as it pertains to the vaccination, of course, in the fight against COVID-19. Viewers, earlier you heard from His Excellency Governor John Rankin, and we thank you, gentlemen, so much, both of you, for coming to the territory. Do have a rest of the good day. Viewers, that is all the time.